February 12, 1943. The ruins of Stalingrad. A Soviet lieutenant named Dmitry Volkov crouches behind what used to be a brick wall. His breath clouds in the -20-degree air. He's been pinned down for 3 hours. His squad started the morning with 8 men. Now there are 4. Nobody's fired at them in the last half hour. No machine gun bursts, no mortars, just silence. And in Stalingrad, silence is worse than screaming shells. Because silence means one thing: a German sniper. Volkov knows the weapon that's hunting him. Every Soviet soldier on the Eastern Front knows it. The Karabiner 98 Kurz, the Kar98k. A bolt-action rifle that's been killing Russian soldiers since Operation Barbarossa began 18 months ago. When equipped with a telescopic sight, it can drop a man at over 1,000 yards. One shot, one kill. The terror isn't the weapon itself. It's the waiting. The knowledge that somewhere in the frozen rubble behind a shattered window or beneath a collapsed roof, a German marksman is watching. Patient, disciplined, invisible. You can fight against tanks. You can dig in against artillery. But how do you fight against something you can't see? Private Yegorov makes his mistake. He shifts his weight, adjusts his position, barely moves 6 inches. The crack of the rifle shot echoes across the ruins. Yegorov slumps forward, a single round through his chest. 7.92 millimeters of Mauser steel core ammunition, traveling at 2,700 feet per second. Now there are 3. This is the story of the weapon that created that terror. The rifle that equipped Germany's deadliest snipers, and the secrets that made it so effective. To understand the Kar98k's impact on the Eastern Front, we need to go back before the war. Back to 1935, June 21st, 1935. The German Wehrmacht officially adopts the Karabiner 98 Kurz as its standard service rifle. Karabiner means carbine. 98 refers to the Mauser Model 1898 action it's based on. Kurz means short, it's a bolt-action rifle. 5-round internal magazine, chambered for the 7.92 57mm Mauser cartridge. Length, 43.7 inches. Weight, just under 9 pounds. Effective range with iron sights, 550 yards. With a telescopic sight, over 1,000 yards. On paper, it doesn't look revolutionary. It's based on a design from 1898. By 1935, that's nearly 40 years old. Other nations are already experimenting with semi-automatic rifles. The Americans have the M1 Garand. The Soviets have the SVT-40. But the Germans stick with the bolt-action design. And there's a reason. The Mauser action is legendary. It's strong, reliable, accurate. The controlled feed system means the cartridge is gripped by the extractor the moment it leaves the magazine. No feeding failures. No jams, not in mud, not in sand, not in the -40-degree temperatures of the Russian winter. The rifle is manufactured primarily at Mauser's facility in Oberndorf am Neckar. Between 1935 and 1945, German factories will produce over 14 million Kar98k rifles. Mauser Oberndorf alone produces approximately 3.2 million. Other manufacturers include Berlin Lübecker Maschinenfabrik, J.P. Sauer & Sohn, and Waffenwerke Brunn in occupied Czechoslovakia. Each rifle is a precision instrument. German manufacturing tolerances are tight. The barrel is cold hammer forged. 4-groove rifling with a right-hand twist. The bolt locks with 3 massive lugs at the front, making the action incredibly strong and capable of handling high-pressure cartridges. But here's what makes the Kar98k special as a sniper rifle. Accuracy. The bolt-action design eliminates the complexity of gas systems and moving parts found in semi-automatic rifles. Fewer moving parts mean less vibration. Less vibration means better accuracy. When you're trying to hit a man-sized target at 800 yards, that matters. The 7.92 57mm Mauser cartridge is a beast. The standard S-Patron ball ammunition fires a 198-grain boat-tail bullet at a muzzle velocity of 2,570 feet per second. That's serious power. The bullet's ballistic coefficient is excellent, meaning it retains velocity and resists wind drift over long distances. For comparison, the Soviet Mosin Nagant fires a 7.62 54mm cartridge. Powerful, yes. But Soviet manufacturing quality is inconsistent. Soviet sights are crude. Soviet scopes fog up in cold weather. The Kar98k, by contrast, is engineered to Swiss watch precision. Now, not every Kar98k becomes a sniper rifle. That requires selection. German armories test fire every rifle coming off the production line. They're looking for accuracy. A standard infantry rifle needs to hit a man-sized target at 300 meters. Good enough for general combat. But potential sniper rifles need to do better. Punch better. Armory technicians fire test groups. They're looking for rifles that can consistently group shots within a 2-inch circle at 100 meters. Only about 10% of rifles meet this standard. These rifles receive special markings. They're set aside for telescopic sight installation. The sight installation process is critical. You can't just bolt a scope onto a rifle and call it a sniper weapon. The mounting system must be rock solid. The scope must return to zero if removed and reinstalled. German engineers developed several mounting systems during the war. The most common sniper configuration uses the Zielfernrohr 39, or ZF39, a 4-power scope manufactured by Carl Zeiss, the legendary optics company. Zeiss is to optics what Mauser is to rifles. Their glass is exceptional, crystal clear, coatings that reduce glare, reticles that remain sharp across the entire field of view. Other manufacturers produce scopes too. Hensoldt, Kalis, Optikotechna in occupied Czechoslovakia. The Wehrmacht designates all 4-power scopes as Zielvier, or ZF4. They're functionally similar, though collectors today argue endlessly about which manufacturer was best. The scope mounts to the rifle using various rail systems. Early war rifles use a long-side rail system. Later, production simplified with shorter mounting systems. Some rifles use a turret-style mount called the short-side rail. Others use a claw mount system. What matters is this. Once zeroed, a Kar98k with a ZF39 or ZF4 scope is accurate to 1,000 meters. In the hands of a trained marksman, it's deadly. But there's another scope configuration that deserves mention, even though it's controversial. In 1941, the Wehrmacht introduces the Zielfernrohr 41, or ZF41. This is a low-power scope. Only 1.5 magnification. Long eye relief, meaning it mounts far forward on the rifle over the rear iron sight. The ZF41 is designed as a designated marksman optic. The idea is to equip regular infantry with slightly enhanced vision for longer-range shots. Issue 1 per squad. Extend your effective range by 100 meters. In theory, it sounds reasonable. In practice, it's nearly useless. 1.5 power barely magnifies. The narrow field of view makes target acquisition difficult. The mounting position is awkward. German snipers hate it. Soviet intelligence reports capture German soldiers' complaints about the ZF41. One captured letter home reads, "They gave me a rifle with a ridiculous little tube on it. I can shoot better with my eyes." Over 130,000 ZF41 equipped rifles are produced. They're issued widely, and they fail widely. By 1942, serious sniper rifles are equipped. September 1st, 1939. Germany invades Poland. The Kar98k goes to war. The Polish campaign lasts 35 days. It's brutal and fast. German infantry armed with Kar98k rifles overwhelm Polish defenders. But this isn't where the rifle earns its reputation. Poland is about tanks and Stukas and blitzkrieg. The rifle is just one weapon among many. The real test comes later. June 22nd, 1941. Operation Barbarossa. 3 million German soldiers invade the Soviet Union. And everything changes. The Eastern Front is different from any conflict in human history. It's vast. It's savage. There are no rules. Both sides fight with desperate ferocity. German snipers equipped with Kar98k rifles discover something. The Eastern Front is target-rich. Soviet infantry tactics in 1941 are problematic. Massive frontal assaults. Human wave attacks. Political commissars who shoot soldiers who retreat. Soviet troops are brave, incredibly brave, but their tactics get them killed in huge numbers. And German snipers harvest them. A German sniper named Josef Allerberger, later credited with 257 confirmed kills, describes his first day on the Eastern Front. They came in lines, shoulder to shoulder. We didn't even need scopes for the first shots. Pick a target. Breathe. Squeeze. The bolt action is so smooth you can work it without taking your eye from the scope. By the time the spent casing hits the ground, you're already on your next target. The Kar98k's bolt action proves its worth immediately. Unlike semi-automatic rifles that can jam or malfunction, the bolt action is virtually foolproof. You work the bolt. You chamber a round. It fires, no gas systems, No complicated mechanisms, just mechanical simplicity. And in Russia, simplicity is survival. The temperature on the Eastern Front swings from plus 90 degrees Fahrenheit in summer to minus 40 in winter. Semi-automatic rifles freeze. Lubricants congeal. Action cease. But the Kar98k keeps firing. German armories issue a winter weight oil for extreme cold. Snipers learn to strip their rifles down to bare metal, removing all lubricant. The bolt still works. Dry, frozen, reliable. Soviet soldiers quickly learned to fear the distinctive crack of a Kar98k. The 7.92mm Mauser cartridge produces a sharp, high-velocity report, different from the deeper boom of Soviet rifles. When you hear that crack, someone just died. Maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was the man next to you. But someone died. The psychological impact is enormous. German sniper doctrine emphasizes not just killing, but disrupting. A single sniper can pin down an entire platoon. They can't advance. They can't retreat. They just wait, terrified, wondering if the next round has their name on it. Soviet reports from Stalingrad describe German snipers as invisible death. Soviet officers try to counter with their own snipers. Some become famous. Vasily Zaitsev, Lyudmila Pavlichenko. They rack up impressive kill counts. Soviet propaganda turns them into heroes. Movies are made. Stories are told. But here's the truth. For every famous Soviet sniper, there were dozens of German snipers nobody ever heard of. The Germans didn't publicize their snipers much. They didn't need propaganda. They just needed results, and the Kar98k delivered results. Let's talk about the men behind those rifles. German sniper training is rigorous. Candidates are selected based on marksmanship scores, but also on temperament. You need patience, discipline, the ability to lie motionless for hours. Some men can do it. Most can't. Training courses last several weeks. Students learn range estimation, wind reading, camouflage, fieldcraft. They learn to think like prey animals, always aware of their surroundings, always planning escape routes. They learn that speed is death, slow is survival. One particularly successful German sniper, Matthias Hetzenauer, credits his rural upbringing for his skills. Born in Austria in 1924, Hetzenauer grew up hunting chamois in the Alps. Patience. His service record is extraordinary. He's assigned to the 3rd Mountain Division on the Eastern Front, July 1943 to April 1945. 22 months of combat. In that time, he's credited with 345 confirmed kills. Let me repeat that. 345 confirmed kills. In the Wehrmacht, confirmed kills require an officer witness. The officer must observe the shot and confirm the target went down. This isn't the Wild West. You can't just claim numbers. Every kill Hetzenauer records is documented, witnessed, verified. His weapon? A Kar98k with a ZF4 scope manufactured by Kalis. He nicknames the rifle Günther. He cleans it every day. He knows its exact zero at every range increment. He fires thousands of practice rounds, learning how the rifle behaves in different temperatures, different humidity levels, different altitudes. Hetzenauer's longest confirmed kill is 1,200 meters. That's 1,312 yards, nearly 3/4 of a mile. At that range, the bullet drops over 20 feet. Wind drift can move the impact point by several feet. Hitting a man-sized target at 1,200 meters requires perfect range estimation, perfect wind reading, and a rifle capable of sub-minute of angle accuracy. The Kar98k delivers. Another legendary German sniper, Joseph Sepp Allerberger, racks up 257 confirmed kills between 1942 and 1945. Allerberger fights in Romania, Slovakia, and Hungary. He survives multiple wounds. Soviet counter-snipers hunt him specifically. He's that effective. Allerberger later writes about his technique. The Kar98k is an extension of your body. You don't aim it. You point it like pointing your finger. The scope brings the target close, but your instinct makes the shot. Breathe naturally. Don't hold your breath. Squeeze the trigger between heartbeats. The rifle will surprise you when it fires. If you're anticipating the shot, you'll flinch. Even a tiny flinch throws you off at long range. Together, Hetzenauer and Allerberger account for approximately 600 Soviet soldiers killed. 2 men, 2 rifles, 600 lives. The numbers are staggering. But they raise an important question. How? How do 2 men with bolt-action rifles that require manual operation between every shot, Kill 600 soldiers in a war where everyone is trying to kill you back. The answer is patience and position. German sniper doctrine emphasizes concealment over everything else. You don't take the shot unless you're certain you can take it without being spotted. Sometimes that means watching targets for hours, waiting for the perfect moment. Sometimes that means letting good targets walk away because the position isn't right. German snipers work alone or in two-man teams. A sniper and a spotter. The spotter uses a specialized spotting scope to observe the target area, estimate range, read wind conditions, and confirm hits. The spotter also watches for threats. Soviet counter-snipers, flanking infantry, artillery observers who might spot your muzzle flash. Camouflage is critical. German snipers use ghillie suits long before they become standard in other armies. Natural vegetation attached to a mesh base. The sniper becomes part of the landscape. They move slowly, inches per hour. They understand that the human eye detects movement more than shape. Position selection is an art form. German snipers learn to think like their targets. Where would I go if I were attacking? What routes would I use? What cover would I seek? Then position yourself to cover those areas. Classic sniper hides include destroyed buildings with multiple exit routes, fallen trees with overhead concealment, shell craters that blend into the cratered landscape, and elevated positions with clear fields of fire. But here's the secret. German snipers rarely shoot from the obvious position. Never from the top floor of the tallest building. Never from the most commanding hilltop. Those positions attract counter-battery fire. Instead, they shoot from the second-best position. The one nobody expects. One Soviet after-action report from 1943 describes a German sniper who operated from a destroyed basement. He'd cleared a tiny firing port through the rubble, maybe 4 inches wide. He'd shoot, then cover the port with a piece of debris. Soviet troops searching for him would find the destroyed building, clear it, and find nothing, because the sniper was below ground level. They never looked down. He killed 17 Soviet soldiers over 3 days before a Soviet artillery barrage collapsed the building. They never captured him, never confirmed if he died or escaped. He just vanished. That's the psychological power of the Kar98k sniper. You can't fight an enemy you can't find. The rifle's accuracy is essential to this doctrine. If you only get one shot before you have to relocate, that shot must count. The Kar98k's accuracy gives German snipers confidence. They know that if they do their part, correct range estimation, correct wind reading, correct trigger control, the rifle will do its part. The 7.92mm Mauser cartridge deserves special mention here. It's a powerful flat-shooting round. At 300 meters, it drops only about 12 inches compared to the bore line. That's relatively flat trajectory. It means less holdover, simpler calculations, and better hit probability. The bullet itself is devastating. The standard S-Patron ball ammunition uses a boat-tail bullet with a steel core. It penetrates cover effectively, sandbags, wood, even light steel. The wound ballistics are severe. The bullet tumbles after impact, creating massive wound channels. German ammunition production is consistent. Lot-to-lot variations are minimal. Snipers can zero their rifles and trust that zero across different ammunition batches. Soviet ammunition, by contrast, varies significantly. Different factories, different quality control standards. A rifle zeroed with one batch might shoot to a different point of impact with another batch. This might seem like a minor detail. It's not. When you're shooting at a man-sized target at 600 meters, a 2-inch shift in point of impact is the difference between a kill and a miss. The Kar98k also has one often overlooked advantage. It's quiet. Well, quiet is relative in combat. But compared to semi-automatic rifles, the bolt-action Kar98k produces less mechanical noise. No action cycling. No empty cases clattering on the ground. The only sound is the shot itself. And at long range, it's difficult to locate where that shot came from. Sound travels at roughly 1,100 feet per second. The 7.92mm bullet travels at 2,700 feet per second. That means the bullet arrives before the sound. By the time the target hears the shot, they're already hit. And the sound itself is deceptive. It echoes off buildings and terrain. Trying to locate a sniper by sound alone is nearly impossible. German snipers exploit this. Take the shot. Wait. Watch. If nobody reacts, if nobody pinpoints your position, you might have time for a second shot, maybe a third. But discipline is key. The moment you sense detection, you're gone. One technique German snipers use is called reconnaissance. When the war ends in May 1945, millions of Kar-98k rifles are scattered across Europe. German military stockpiles, captured weapons, rifles abandoned in retreat. The Soviets capture enormous quantities. They rechamber many for their own 7.62 cartridge and redistribute them to satellite states. Yugoslavia, Poland, Czechoslovakia. The Kar-98k, ironically, equips communist armies for decades after Nazi Germany's defeat. The rifle that terrorized Soviet soldiers in World War II becomes a Soviet bloc standard. Some of these rifles see combat again in Korea, in Vietnam, in Middle Eastern conflicts throughout the Cold War. Why? Because the Mauser action is that good arms experts after the war study the Kar-98k extensively. American ordnance officers test captured specimens. British weapons researchers disassemble them. Everyone wants to understand what made German small arms so effective. The conclusion is unanimous: engineering excellence. Tight tolerances, quality materials, precision manufacturing. The Germans didn't invent anything revolutionary. They just executed traditional designs with exceptional quality. The Kar-98k becomes a benchmark. When post-war nations design new rifles, they study the Mauser action. Some copy it directly. The Yugoslav Zastava M48, the Spanish FR8, the Israeli K98k conversions. Even the American Winchester Model 70 uses a modified Mauser action. The sporting rifle industry embraces the Mauser action enthusiastically. After the war, surplus Kar-98k rifles flood the civilian market. Gunsmiths sporterize them, cut down the stock, install new barrels, add civilian scopes. These converted rifles become popular hunting weapons. Accurate, reliable, affordable. Even today, in 2025, 80 years after the war ended, Mauser actions are still being manufactured. Modern companies like Mauser Jagdwaffen GmbH produce sporting rifles based on the M98 action. The design is timeless. But what about the sniper legacy? Modern military snipers owe a debt to those German marksmen on the Eastern Front. Many of the tactics they developed, patience, camouflage, position selection, reconnaissance by fire, are still taught in sniper schools worldwide. The American military's sniper program traces philosophical lineage directly back to German doctrine. Marine Scout sniper training emphasizes many of the same principles: concealment over firepower, accuracy over volume, patience over aggression. Modern sniper rifles are far more sophisticated than the Kar-98k. They're chambered for more powerful cartridges. They wear advanced optics with ranging reticles and ballistic compensation. They incorporate modern materials and manufacturing techniques. But at their core, they're still bolt-action rifles. Because that fundamental design, proven on the Eastern Front 80 years ago, remains the gold standard for precision shooting. The Kar-98k's legacy is complicated. It's a weapon inextricably linked to one of history's most evil regimes. German snipers on the Eastern Front served the Nazi cause. They fought to expand Hitler's empire of death. Many Soviet soldiers they killed were defending their homeland from genocide. We can't separate the weapon from that context, but we can acknowledge that the rifle itself was a masterpiece of engineering. We can recognize that the marksmanship skills involved were extraordinary, and we can learn from the tactical innovations that emerged from that terrible conflict. Military historians study the Eastern Front extensively, not to glorify war but to understand it. What worked? What failed? How did soldiers survive in such extreme conditions? What weapons proved effective? What tactics dominated? The Kar-98k sniper rifle emerges from this analysis as one of the most effective weapons of World War II. Not because it killed the most people, artillery and bombing did that, but because of its psychological impact, because of what it represented: fear, precision, inevitable death from an unseen enemy. Soviet veterans interviewed decades after the war still remember the Kar-98k. They remember the sound. They remember the fear. One veteran interviewed in 1995 said, "We could handle machine guns. We knew where they were, we could suppress them. But the German snipers, you never knew. Every open space was a death trap. Every window could hide a rifle. You moved and hoped. That's all you could do." That psychological warfare was as effective as the physical casualties. Units that lost men to sniper fire became cautious, slower, less aggressive. One German sniper could degrade the combat effectiveness of an entire company. Modern military doctrine calls this asymmetric warfare. Today, original Kar98k sniper rifles are collector's items. Authenticated examples with period-correct scopes and documentation can sell for $10,000 or more. Museums display them. Collectors prize them. Researchers study them. The rifle has appeared in countless films and video games, sometimes accurately portrayed, often not. Popular culture has turned the Kar98k into a symbol, sometimes of German military prowess, sometimes of Nazi evil, depending on the narrative. But the physical rifles tell the real story. If you examine an original Kar98k sniper rifle, really examine it, you see the craftsmanship, the attention to detail, the precisely fitted parts, the quality of the steel, the smoothness of the action. German manufacturers in the 1930s and 40s built these rifles to last centuries. And many have. Kar98k rifles produced 80 years ago still function perfectly, still group accurately, still demonstrate why the Mauser action became legendary. Modern replica manufacturers produce reproduction Kar98k rifles for historical collectors and competition shooters. These reproductions vary in quality, but the best ones, made by companies in Europe and the United States, maintain the original specifications. Collectors and shooting enthusiasts can experience what those World War II snipers experienced. The smooth bolt, the crisp trigger, the natural pointability. Of course, modern shooters aren't hunting human beings. They're punching paper targets or competing in vintage military rifle matches. But the rifle's capabilities remain unchanged. What could kill at 1,000 yards in 1943 can hit 1,000 yards in 2025. The soldiers who carried these rifles are mostly gone now. Matthias Hetzenauer died in 2004 at age 79. Josef Allerberger passed away in 2010 at 84. The generation that fought on the Eastern Front is fading into history, but the lessons remain. Military historians study German sniper doctrine. Special operations forces analyze the tactics. Modern sniper instructors teach many of the same principles that German marksmen learned 80 years ago. The Kar98k's story is ultimately about more than one rifle. It's about the intersection of engineering excellence, tactical innovation, and human skill. It's about what happens when you combine a precisely manufactured tool with rigorous training and combat necessity. The rifle terrified Soviet soldiers not because it was magical, not because German soldiers were supermen, but because the weapon system, rifle, scope, ammunition, training, doctrine, was optimized for its mission. That optimization created effectiveness. Effectiveness created fear, and fear shaped the battlefield. In studying weapons like the Kar98k, we're not celebrating war or glorifying violence. We're examining how technology influences conflict, how engineering decisions made in peacetime factories affect soldiers in combat, how a tool becomes more than the sum of its parts when placed in skilled hands. The Nazi sniper rifle that terrified Soviet soldiers was, in the end, just a rifle. Steel and wood, bolt and barrel,